see on the screen, you can see how the humans evolved. We have all heard of the dinosaur period, and we have all heard of how the caveman evolved. People lived in caves where they took shelter, and what did they have for food? They hunted animals or they ate the fruits from the different trees. Slowly, the humans evolved to such a situation that they started their own civilization. We will be learning about Indus Valley civilization, and we'll know that there were the people who were settled on the banks of rivers and they held their own lifestyle. So, what does this word civilization mean? When people join together, they decide to have a proper life and they have their own set of rules to govern themselves and have a proper way of dressing, religion, and so on. This is known as civilization. So we can see how the humans evolved from just nomads or uncivilized people or cavemen all the way up to civilization. River banks were places where people could live happily because they had water for all their uses. They could develop agriculture, they could grow up animals. All that was possible when they settled near river banks. That is why many of the civilization or all of the civilizations are established on the river banks. Later we'll be learning the lesson about the different civilizations of the world. In India, the most important civilization is the Harappan civilization or the Indus Valley civilization. What does the word Indus mean, children? Yes, it is the other name of the river Sindhu. So, the civilization or when group of people settled near the banks of Sindhu and established their own culture, they were known as Indus Valley civilization. Slowly, humans developed and they started having fortifications. They felt that they are living quite happily and they wanted to protect themselves from wild animals and other kinds of people, the other nomads who were trying to attack them. So they formed and settled, they made their houses, they started building walls around the places where they stayed, and slowly such group of people who had their own trading, their own agriculture came to be called as the Janapada. Janapada. Jana means people, Pada means food. That means many people who were staying together near the river banks and had their own culture and civilization came to be called as Janapada. Those areas were known as Janapadas. It is resembling those small villages which we have now. Slowly, the number of people in Janapadas increased. And when they increased, they had better agriculture facilities, better ways of living. They started traveling outside their Janapada, and such Janapadas slowly became to be called as Mahajanapadas. So I hope you all understood the term Janapada and a Mahajanapada, children. In the prayer slide, you saw how a Janapada would have looked. Now, in this, you can see a Mahajanapada. You can just see how well fortified and what wonderful buildings they had built in those ancient times. So, what have we seen till now? We have seen the evolution of mankind, how we had civilizations, how Janapadas have been formed, and bigger Janapadas were known as Mahajanapadas. Now, these Janapadas have to be ruled, isn't it? So, what kind of ruling system was there? There were two kinds of ruling system. One was the monarchy and the other was the republic. Monarchy, monarch. A monarch means a king. So, a form of government with a monarch or a king as the head is known as monarchy. We have all come across different kings who had ruled different places, isn't it, children? So that kind of system was known as a monarchy. So then what is a republic? A republic is a form of government in which the people will join together and elect a representative. So usually these representatives were known as oligarchs, and there are different kind of assemblies which help them like Sabha and Samiti. We have learnt all this during Vedic period chapter, children. Now, what are the two types of government which were there in Mahajanapadas? Monarchy and republic. Monarchy, the king is the head. Republic, the elected representative of all the citizens is the head. I hope you understood, children. Monarchy, republic. In ancient India, there were 16 major or very important Mahajanapadas. You can see a map on the screen, children. This is a map of ancient India. And these are the most important Janapadas, Mahajanapadas of that particular time. You have Kamboja, Kuru, Surasena, Matsya, Avanti, Panchala, Kosala, Vamsa, Chedi, Koliya, Kashi, Sakya, Vaji, Magadha, Anga and Vanga. These are all the 16 important Mahajanapadas, of which the most important is the Magadha. Magadha was a monarchy. That means who's the head of the ruling? Yes, the king ruled over. And of all these different 16 Mahajanapadas, the most important republic was Vaji. Now let us take up Magadha. We learned that monarchy means ruled by a king or a queen. So, after the death of the king or the queen, their children became the next kings or queens. This kind of succession of people from the same family who rule is known as a dynasty. Have you understood? When the children of the parent rule after the parent and it continues on generation after generation, such kind of ruling is known as a dynasty. So today we are going to learn about the important dynasties of North India. The most important Mahajanapada of North India was the Magadha. The Magadhan rulers were very strong, and the first dynasty was set up by Brihadartha. As per Mahabharata period, he is supposed to be the first person who had set up a dynasty in Magadha. Who was the first ruler? Brihadartha. But the most famous ruler was Bimbisara and his son Ajatashatru. You can see on the screen that Bimbisara at that time itself had met Lord Buddha and taken blessings from him. Do you all know who Lord Buddha is? Yes, children, the person who founded Buddhism. Bimbisara's son Ajatashatru of Haryanka dynasty was the most famous ruler. After him, the kings were not that strong, and slowly this dynasty, that is the Haryanka dynasty, was overthrown by a different dynasty which was known as the Shishunaga dynasty. Who was the first founder of the Magadha dynasty? Brihadartha. Who was the most famous ruler? Ajatashatru. Who took up Buddhism? Bimbisara. And what was the dynasty called? Haryanka dynasty. This dynasty was overthrown by Shishunaga dynasty, and the last ruler of Shishunaga was killed by Mahapadmananda. Who was the last ruler? Mahanandin, and he was killed by Mahapadmananda, and hence he started the rule of 9 Nandas. You can see on the screen at that time itself how pretty Magadha is, children. It was a beautiful place, and you can see Bimbisara taking the blessings of Lord Buddha. The last ruler of this Nanda dynasty was Dhanananda. Can you see him sitting in the throne and looking, children? Yes, I hope you have all understood. The first ruler, Brihadatta, who established the dynasty in Magadha. Later on, the most important ruler was Ajatashatru, who was overthrown by Shishunaga dynasty. And the last ruler of Shishunaga dynasty was killed by a Nanda ruler. And the last Nanda ruler was Dhanananda, the person you can see on the screen. Children, don't be confused with so many names. It is only a story. Now you can see the picture of a Brahmin on the screen. Do you know who this famous person was? He was Vishnugupta, a learned Brahmin from Takshashila University. North India was very famous with universities like Takshashila and Nalanda. Unfortunately, they are not there, they have been razed to the ground. This Brahmin, Vishnugupta, was a learned person from Takshashila, had been to Dhanananda's court. Who was Dhanananda? Yes, the last Nanda ruler. But unfortunately, Dhanananda made fun of him, criticized him, and threw him out of his court. This Brahmin was very angry and he vowed that he would end the Nanda dynasty. He went in search of an excellent warrior and he came across a small boy playing with his friends. And he observed the boy was passing wonderful judgments. He sat as if in a throne and made his friends sit around him as if they were all in a court. Observing the boy, Vishnugupta was very happy, took him under him, taught him, made him an excellent warrior, collected lot of troops, and this boy, who is this boy, children? Yes, this boy is the famous Chandragupta Maurya. With the help of Vishnugupta and quite a few army, Chandragupta Maurya fought against Dhanananda, killed him, and established the Mauryan dynasty. Now, do you understand, children, how the Mauryan dynasty was established? It's all because of Vishnugupta. And what is the other name for Vishnugupta, children? Does anybody know? Yes, he was known as Kautilya or Chanakya. Any person who is very clever is referred to as Chanakya, isn't it, children? So he was the Chanakya of Indian history. So you have understood, children? Chandragupta Maurya, with the help of Vishnugupta, fought against Dhanananda and established the Mauryan dynasty. This is the first dynasty of India, and we are going to take up Mauryan dynasty first. Very interesting, isn't it, children, how the Mauryan dynasty came up? Yes. Now, Chanakya was a great politician and administrator, and he had written a book which is called as Arthashastra. Now, let us come to Chandragupta Maurya. We learned that Chandragupta Maurya was the first ruler who established the Mauryan dynasty. Now, you can see a map on the left hand side for all Chandragupta's conquests. He had spread his kingdom from north to the middle of India. Remember, he established the Mauryan dynasty 2300 years ago, children. And he made Pataliputra. You can see that small picture insert near the map. Yes, that Pataliputra was his capital. Where is this Pataliputra now? It's called Patna in Bihar. This was the capital of the Mauryans. Now, once he had settled as a ruler, he decided to capture all the places around him. He organized a very large army and he moved towards the northwestern India. Can you see in the map? So many places of northwestern India came under Chandragupta. Now, some of these regions in northwest was occupied by Alexander the Great. Who was Alexander? He was the king of Mesopotamia. But after his conquest, Alexander had returned because he was not well and he made his chief Seleucus to take care of his regions. Now, Chandragupta Maurya fought against Seleucus and easily defeated him. Once Seleucus was defeated, he immediately gave up all the regions like Baluchistan, Afghanistan, and western areas of Sindhu. Not only that, he also got his daughter married to Chandragupta Maurya. In return to this, Chandragupta gifted Seleucus with 500 elephants. And Seleucus was very happy and the relationships maintained quite well. So he sent an ambassador called Megasthenes to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Who is an ambassador, children? An ambassador is a person who is sent from one country to another country to learn all about the country and help maintain good relationships. This Megasthenes, who had come from Seleucus, recorded all his experiences in a book called Indica. What was the book written by Megasthenes? Indica. This book is an excellent source to find out all about Chandragupta Maurya, his administration, his conquests, and so on. Earlier we had done a lessons, isn't it, children? Sources of history, and we have read about foreign sources. Megasthenes is one of the foreign sources from which we get information about Chandragupta Maurya. Now, what did we learn? We learned that Chanakya or Vishnugupta had written a book called Arthashastra, which is even now called as the political Bible because it has all forms of administration. And Chandragupta continued administering his kingdom based on Arthashastra. Also, Chandragupta had taken an army and he fought against Seleucus, who was the chief of. Whose chief was Seleucus? Yes, Alexander. Chandragupta defeated Seleucus, married his daughter, and in return gave 500 elephants. Have you understood, children? Now, Chandragupta Maurya, after some time, took up Jainism and he made his son Bindusara as the king. Chandragupta's son Bindusara ruled about 25 years and after him his son Ashoka ascended the throne. I think we have all heard of the name Ashoka, isn't it, children? Ashoka was also known as Ashoka the Great or Samrat Ashoka. Now let's learn about Ashoka the Great. Samrat Ashoka is the name given to Ashoka. Now he was a great warrior and once he ascended the throne, he wanted to capture all the places and bring it under his control. He took a large army and extended all his empire. You can see that more than Chandragupta Maurya's empire, Ashoka's empire even extended up to the Deccan Plateau, all the way the northwestern frontier down to the Deccan Plateau. Can you see on the screen, children? So much of conquest was done by Ashoka. All this place other than that Kalinga, can you see on the central map? Kalinga, yes. This Kalinga was a republic and they refused to accept the supremacy or the rule of Ashoka. This Kalinga is now a part of Orissa or Odisha. Now Ashoka wanted Kalinga to come under him. So he waged a war And in that war, 1 lakh people of Kalinga lost their lives and another 1 lakh became injured. We have all heard of the story, isn't it, children? Ashoka stood in the middle of the battlefield and he saw that all his battle and his victory was futile. What was the use of winning over the dead bodies of so many people? It hurt him a lot, and he decided never to wage a war in his life again. And he chose the path of Dharma and took up Buddhism. The Kalinga War has a lot of importance in the history because it created Samrat Ashoka to Ashoka the Great. Ashoka is not known for his conquests but for his greatness because he loved the people to be his own children. All this happened because of the Kalinga War. Buddhism became the main principle of Ashoka's life because he felt that Buddhism principles are excellent and he wanted to spread to all his people. He was the first king to give welfare of his subjects the top priority and he had declared that my citizens are like my children. He wanted to spread the messages of Buddhism to his subjects and he propagated that one should respect parents and elders and should have compassion, truthfulness, and be generous in life. He was totally against violence, anger, and jealousy. The other ways in which he had spread Buddhism by creating edicts, inscriptions. You can see on the screen that there are certain things which have been written or etched into the stone. These writings, which are etched into the stone, are known as inscriptions. Ashoka spread Buddhism through his inscriptions or edicts. You can see on the map. All those have been pointed out over there. The major rock edicts, the minor pillar edicts. Rock edicts are inscriptions on large chunks of rocks inside stupas. Pillar edicts, you can see the big pillar over there, children. That is the Sarnath pillar. In that also you can find inscriptions. Then you have minor rock edicts which are not that important but still are there. This map shows how many edicts of Ashoka have been set up all over India. And what is the importance of these edicts? Till then, all the kings used to use only Sanskrit. But the edicts of Ashoka have been Brahmi script or in Prakrit language. Hence, it was understood by all the people. Children, in Karnataka alone, we have 17 inscriptions of Ashoka. These many we have found in Karnataka. And the most important inscription is the inscription which is there in Maski of Raichur, which is very important because for the first time the name of Ashoka is appearing in the inscription. Usually in all the other places, Ashoka is referred to as Devanam Priya or Priyadarshi. But for the first time, the name of Ashoka is appearing in which inscription? Maski inscription of Raichur. Now, these inscriptions are excellent sources from which we can understand all about Ashoka. You can see that emblem in the corner, right hand corner. What is that emblem, children? Yes, we all do know that it is the national emblem of India. This emblem is taken from the Sarnath pillar and it has been used in our currencies, in our official documents. It's also the seal of India. And you know there are 4 lines facing 4 directions. You have a wheel in 4 directions and also animals. This is our national emblem. Have you understood what are edicts, inscriptions, and pillars, children? These are the ways in which Ashoka spread Buddhism. Ashoka used three methods to spread Buddhism. The first one was he set up edicts or inscriptions writing about the principles of Buddha all over the country. The second was he set up the third Buddhist council. You can see on the screen it is just a picturization of the Buddhist council, and Moggalliputta was the person who had headed the council. He had convened this council and brought about many of the Buddhist learned monks who taught the people around the stories of Buddha and the principles of Buddha. This was a great event which took place in Ashoka's reign. The third method by which he spread Buddhism was to send Buddhist texts to different parts of the world. He sent his own son and daughter to spread Buddhism to different places. You can see that though India is the birthplace of Buddhism, the other countries around India have taken up Buddhism as their national religion itself. This is all due to the efforts of Ashoka. So, what are the three methods by which he had spread Buddhism? He had set up rock edicts and inscriptions, which was in Brahmi script or in Prakrit language, and he had convened the third Buddhist council, and also he had sent Buddhist texts through his own children to different parts of the world. Ashoka's administration is very important as it is based on the Arthashastras, and he had appointed many Dharma Mahamatras to take care of the people. If you observe the map on the screen carefully, you can see the expansion of Magadha. First, when it was under Pushyamitra Sunga, then under Bimbisara, then slowly when it came under Chandragupta Maurya, then when it came under Ashoka the Great. So you can see how the expansion of the kingdom took place to such an extent that when it was under Ashoka, it had almost covered the entire of India, leaving a small portion of the Deccan Plateau. Observe it, children, it's quite interesting to see. After Ashoka the Great, the other successors or the kings who ruled after him were rather weak. They were not strong enough to take care of the frontiers, and one by one the empire started breaking up. Some of the reasons for the decline of Mauryan Empire are the weak successors of Ashoka, because the kings were not strong enough after him. The empire was too vast, it was too big to be controlled, and slowly, one by one, the provinces started declaring independence, and there were a lot of foreign invasion and there was internal revolt. People revolted against the weak kings. Because of all these factors, the Mauryan Empire declined, and the last ruler of the Mauryans was Brihadartha Maurya. I hope you have understood, children, how from Magadha the Mauryan Empire was created, who were the most important rulers, and what were the reasons for the decline of the Mauryan Empire. With this, in history of India, the Mauryan Empire comes to an end. As the Mauryans became weaker, slowly many foreigners started attacking India. The name and fame of India had spread everywhere. But India had always been protected by the wonderful frontiers. When we learnt last year the physical features of India, we had learnt that our northern Himalayas acts as a wonderful boundary. It stops people from entering into India. Nobody can enter that easily. But these foreign invaders found a way through the Khyber Pass and the Bolan Pass. Can you see on the screen the Khyber Pass? A pass is a small path between the mountain ranges which is possible for people to enter. Using these passes, these foreigners entered India and invaded the Indians. The first such foreigners were the Indo-Greek Bactrian rulers, and they had set up the kingdom which you can see on the screen. Then came the Parthians and then came the Scythians. All these were foreigners who had invaded India and settled over here. And the last Scythian rulers were overthrown by Heraios, who was a Kushana ruler. We had already learnt when we were learning about Mahajanapadas the word Gandhara. Do you remember seeing in the map Gandhara? Yes, this Kushana ruler was from Gandhara. He overthrew the Scythians and established the Kushanas, who were also known as the Sakas. Now there are so many important Kushana rulers. The first being the Heraios, then you have the Kujla Kadphises and so on. But the most important of all the rulers was the Kanishka. Children, we had learnt about Mauryas, isn't it? Now we are going to learn about the Kushana dynasty, who are also known as the Sakas. So let's start, children, learning about this. The Kushana Empire expanded from Greco-Bactrian lands to India and China. They were belonging to the Eravi branch of tribe. These people came from Gandhara and they expanded toward the northern parts of Indian subcontinent. And they created the famous Kushana dynasty. So the next dynasty which we are going to learn is about the Kushana dynasty. Now they had established two capitals, twin capitals, Kapisa and Pushkalavati. What are these names of these two, ma? Kapisa and Pushkalavati. What are they called now? Kabul and Peshawar. The name of Kapisa and Pushkalavati is Kabul and Peshawar. They were the two capitals of the Kushanas. Slowly, the Kushanas expanded across the northern parts of Indian subcontinent, and the most important ruler Kanishka brought it all under his control, and he also sent his armies up to the Karakoram mountains to capture additional territories. There is one reason why he did this, children. By capturing the mountain territories, he was able to create a direct road from Gandhara to China. This road later on came to be known as the Silk Route. It's very important, children. You'll come across the Silk Route a lot of times in history. So who is the most famous emperor of the Kushanas? Kanishka. And the Kushanas were also known as the Sakas. And from which land did they come? Gandhara. Kanishka was also called as Second Ashoka. Why was he given the name, children, as Second Ashoka? It's because of his contribution to Buddhism. Ashoka had also spread Buddhism throughout the world. The same path was taken up by Kanishka. We know that he had managed to capture the Karakoram mountain ranges. Now he used this path through which the traders went to spread Buddhism by giving Buddhist texts to them. And he also convened the fourth Buddhist council. Who convened the third Buddhist council, children? Yes, Ashoka the Great. Now, Kanishka convened the fourth Buddhist council under the able guidance of Vasumitra and Ashwagosha. Here, ancient Buddhist texts were translated. Can you see a picturization of that on the screen, children? Furthermore, Kanishka started Shalivahana Shaka, which was a calendar. It was started during his era. The Kushan dynasty was very famous for that. You can see on the screen, you have that month Chaitra up to Phalguna. Now, all these were started by Kanishka, which calendar even we are using now. It has been officially recognized by the Indian government. You can see on the right hand corner side of the screen a small coin, isn't it, children? It is not a coin. It is the calendar set up by Kushanas under Kanishka. You can also see the Sakas had given the names for the different days of the week. The same terminology we use now also to speak about the different days of the week. So, Kanishka had started the fourth Buddhist council under the able guidance of Vasumitra and Ashwagosha. He had also started a calendar which was known as Shalivahana Shaka, and that Shalivahana Shaka is used now by the Indian government as the national calendar. And the names given to the days of the week by the Sakans are still used in India. Wonderful, isn't it, children? Just like Ashoka, even Kanishka built stupas and towers. He built a stupa in Purushapura, which was the capital which he had built, which was a 13-story tower. You can see over there, 13-story tower, and it was 400 feet height. The height of the tower is 400 feet. It was really a building of wonder at that time. He also built that beautiful Kanishkapura, the ruins of which can be seen on the screen. The Kushanas were the first to mint gold coins in India. You can see the 4 different types of coins and what are the inscriptions and what are the pictures which is etched on them. The different kinds of script which is used on them, everything can be seen on the screen. Now, Kanishka was also a great patron of arts and literature. You can see that there are 2 types of art which emerged during Kanishka's period. There was a Gandhara style of sculpture which you can see on the screen, and a Mathura style of sculpture. These two mixed to create a new type of sculpture during Kanishka's period. And you can see there on the left side corner, there is a statue. It was a statue of Kanishka which is found at Mathura. But the head of the statue has been broken. So from all this we can identify that Kanishka was a great patron of arts. Kanishka had offered shelter to many great scholars and writers of his time. Some of the great creative writers were Ashwagosha, and he had written Buddha Charita. Now, Buddha Charita is a biography of Lord Buddha, and he had also composed Soundarananda, which is an excellent example of Sanskrit Kavya. So, what was the book written by Ashwagosha? Buddha Charita. And the other important books of this particular time are the Mahavastu and Divyananda. A writer, Bharata's Natya Shastra, has laid down the rules for dancing and has created an entry of theatre into India. And we have all heard of Vasumitra, who had presided over the 4th Buddhist council. And the great Nagarjuna was a philosopher who was present in Kanishka's court. Charaka was an important doctor who was a contemporary of Kanishka. So, through all this, we can understand that the Kushanas were great patrons of art, literature, architecture, and so on. After Kanishka, the other rulers were not that strong as Kanishka. And slowly, after that of the last emperor Vasudeva, the Kushana Empire itself split into two. There was a western half and an eastern half. The western Kushanas settled in Afghanistan, but they were defeated by Persians in the long run. The eastern Kushanas had settled in Punjab, but in 270 CE, that is common evaluation, even they were defeated by the local dynasties called as the Yeduves. And slowly these Yeduves were also defeated, and a new dynasty called the Gupta dynasty came up in North India. So children, today we have learnt two important dynasties in North India. We had learnt about the Mauryan dynasty and the Kushana dynasty. Now let's look into the points, children. Please take out your classworks and write these points to remember, children. The first subheading is Mauryan dynasty. Mauryan dynasty is the first dynasty of India. Chandragupta Maurya is the founder of this dynasty. Vishnugupta of Takshashila University was an intelligent, diplomatic and shrewd Brahmin who was also called Kautilya and Chanakya. He visited the last Nanda ruler Dhanananda's court. He was insulted by the Nanda ruler Dhanananda and vowed to dethrone the king. Kautilya trained Chandragupta in the skills of warfare and helped him to form his own army. Chandragupta, under the able guidance of Chanakya, defeated Dhanananda and established the Mauryan Empire. Chandragupta further organized a large army and moved towards northwestern India. Some of the northwestern areas were occupied by Alexander, the king of Mesopotamia, but were under his representative Seleucus Nicator. Seleucus was defeated by Chandragupta Maurya. Please write it in your classwork, children. Please. Some more points, children. After being defeated by Chandragupta Maurya, Seleucus entered an agreement with him, and apart from giving away Afghanistan, Baluchistan, and western areas of Sindh, he also got his daughter married to Chandragupta Maurya. In return, Chandragupta gave Seleucus 500 elephants as a gift. Seleucus sent an ambassador called Megasthenes to Chandragupta's court. Megasthenes recorded his experiences in his book titled Indica. Vishnugupta or Kautilya was the prime minister of Chandragupta. Kautilya's Arthashastra is a well-known book on administrative techniques. Chandragupta Maurya was followed by his son Bindusara, who ruled for 25 years. After Bindusara, his son Ashoka came into power. Ashoka's inscriptions are found throughout India. His inscriptions are in Brahmi script and Prakrit languages. 17 inscriptions of Ashoka have been found in Karnataka. The inscriptions found at Maski of Raichur are important. Ashoka is usually called Devanam Priya and Priyadarshi in his inscriptions. The name Ashoka first appears in the inscription found at Maski of Raichur. Ashoka declared war against Kalinga 8 years after he came to power. Kalinga was a part of present Odisha. In this war, 1 lakh people lost their lives and another 1 lakh became injured. Ashoka was deeply disturbed by the extent of damage to human life in this war. Ashoka chose Dharma in the place of war and became a Buddhist. Ashoka organized the third Buddhist council at Pataliputra. He built stupas and sent people to far-off countries to spread Buddhism. Ashoka's sculptures are seen in many stupas and pillars, of which the Sanchi stupa of Madhya Pradesh and pillar in Sarnath are famous. The four-headed lion on the top of Sarnath pillar is our national symbol. About 200 years ago, Kushanas ruled over Gandhara. Children, the subheading is Kushana dynasty. Kanishka is the most famous ruler of Kushanas. His empire extended from Afghanistan to Bihar. Kanishka was a follower of Buddhism and built many stupas like Ashoka. He sent Buddhist monks to many countries to spread Buddhism. He conducted the 4th International Buddhist Conference in Kashmir with Masumitra as its president. To mark the beginning of his administration, he started Shaka calendar, which is also called a Shalivahana Shaka. This calendar is also the official calendar of Government of India. Kanishka built many stupas. The stupa at Purushapura had a 13-story tower and was 400 feet high, a building of wonder. He also built Kanishkapura. He invited artists from different countries, and as a result, new styles of art emerged out of these interactions called as Gandhara and Mathura form of art. A stone statue of Kanishka has been found in Mathura. The head is missing from the statue, and at the pedestal, Kanishka's name is etched. Many coins belonging to Kushanas have been found. Kushanas were the first ones to mint gold coins. Ashwagosha has written Buddha Charita in Sanskrit. Nagarjuna was a great philosopher present in Kanishka's court. Vasumitra was a Buddhist scholar. Charaka was said to be a contemporary doctor of Kanishka. Children, let's do an activity. You have to identify these personalities. There are 3 personalities on the screen. and you have learnt them all in today's lesson. Please identify them and write their names. Children, this is another activity. You can see 3 pictures on the screen. You have to identify who these people are and you have to write their book. You have to name the book written by these 3 dignitaries. Another activity, children. There are 2 forms of art on the screen. Identify them and write them down. Children, let's do an assignment. Fill in the blanks. The first dynasty of India was the dash. The last Nanda ruler was dash. Alexander was the king of dash. Chandragupta Maurya gifted Seleucus Nicator dash elephants. Ashoka convened the dash Buddhist council. The most famous of all the Kushana rulers was dash. The ambassador sent by Seleucus to the court of Chandragupta Maurya was dash. The king who treated his subjects like his children was dash. Ashoka's inscriptions were mainly in dash script. Our national emblem is dash. Children, let's do another assignment. Answer the following questions. First, who founded the Mauryan dynasty? Second, which was the capital of Mauryan dynasty? Third, name the famous inscriptions of Ashoka's period found in Karnataka. Fourth, what were the names of Ashoka given in his inscriptions? Fifth, name the famous war which changed Ashoka's career. Sixth, name the calendar started by Kanishka. Seventh, who were the first to mint gold coins in India? Eighth, who was the contemporary doctor during Kanishka's period? Children, the answer to all these assignments will be discussed in the next class. Thank you.